and I'm gonna. We build this as early career ministers of music. I don't know. I'll let them define that. I'm sure they're all veterans in their own ways, but compared to me, they're early career. Let's start with that. You know, it's all. I believe in the theory of relativity. So, okay. I'm going to start by just asking them to introduce themselves and tell a little bit about where they are right now, and then we're going to take some hopefully a deep dive into some interesting questions that they're going to unpack for us today. And years ago, how many of you remember Hardy Clemens? Look at all the hands in the room. He came to Wilshire, probably about 15 years ago and preached in the Wilshire pulpit, and I heard Hardy, who was in his winter years at that point, say something I've never forgotten. That was, George Mason is my mentor. And we typically think that mentors are elders and maybe mentees are youngers, right? And that day, Hardy taught me a very important lesson, that one ought to listen to your youngers. And I've never forgotten that from Hardy Clemens, and some of you who knew him knew what a wise sage he was. And in that spirit, I want us to hear some of the best and brightest among us today. So tell us who you are.
Hi, I'm Adam Cogliano. I am at First Baptist Church-Dalton, Georgia. I have been at First Baptist Dalton for a little over a year and a half now. Grew up in Annapolis, Maryland, attended Baylor University for my undergrad in church music.
Yeah.
We're not in
All right.
I only got away from it.
We're all bears up here.
Yeah. So went to Baylor for undergrad, also attended Baylor for grad school. I did the dual degree, Master of Music and Master of Divinity at Truett and Baylor. And then, right at the start of the pandemic, was looking for positions and wound up in Dalton, Georgia, and it's been an absolute blast. So I'm grateful to be a part of this.
Yeah. I am Joslyn Henderson. I am an August graduate of Truett Seminary and Baylor School of Music. I did the same joint degree program with Adam and David. I did my undergrad at Spelman here where in Atlanta? Yeah, okay. Where am I?
Is Stone Mountain, Atlanta?
Not quite. So did my undergrad at Spelman in Atlanta, a little way down the road, and finished up there, did a term of service with AmeriCorps, and then started my church music career in Houston at the Church Without Walls. And then went to, yes. Yes, good people. Those are good people, okay. And then went on to Truett and did the Baylor thing for a real long time. And then when I graduated, I got a job, thank God. So I am the worship arts director at Christ City Church up in Northeast Washington, D.C. And that's where I am now. I just started 3 weeks ago. And I moved from Stone Mountain 3 weeks ago. And I'm glad to be back today, to be here with y'all. Yeah. That's me.
I'm David Warren. I'm the Minister of Music and Worship at First Baptist Church-Roswell, Georgia. And this is my 4th day on the job, so I'm fresh off the turnip truck. Just previously before that, I served as the interim minister, or interim worship and media pastor at First Baptist Church in Maryville, Tennessee, just south of Knoxville. Graduated Baylor just before that, and my wife was teaching in Maryville, and so we went there and got married and started life together, and so now we found ourselves in Roswell. But went to Baylor and did my Master of Divinity in church music and conducting with Adam and Joslyn, and got to meet them there. And before that, I went to Carson Newman College when I started, but now university. So had a great time, and in the midst of that, served several churches in Alabama and Tennessee and Texas all throughout that time. So, yeah.
So everything we do is in the context of a unique and special place, right? And we call that a congregation. Yeah. So I was looking for a neutral way to frame this question, and that is, what is something that has surprised you about congregational life? And I hope you'll tell us something good before you tell us something that's not. Joslyn, we start with you?
Sure. Something that surprised me as far as congregational life goes, is the creative freedom and license when you're in a place that really values you. And I'll say that again, right? Creative freedom and license when you're in a place that values you, your work, your story, your life, your experiences. I've had some experiences where I wasn't in places where I had that type of creative license and freedom, but at this church now, Thursday of last week maybe, I brought Come Unto Jesus, which is a congregational song by Charles Nix out of Detroit, Michigan. And it's like 80s gospel music, and this is a multicultural, i.e. mostly white, multicultural church, multicultural church in like Northeast Washington, D.C. So, we've got the volunteers that come and play, and I handed them the song, and they were like, okay, we'll do it. And like 2 days later, I was like, Joslyn, it's too much. Like, try something a little simpler. Let's get there. But just to have the freedom to say, this is what I want to do, and no kickback to be like, no, we can't do that. I don't really know. That might not go over well. But the freedom to just, they just went with it. Our lead pastor, who is leading up the band this Sunday, he was like, okay, we'll just learn it and we'll have it ready. But I think God is going to be honored by a good musical presentation and something that we can all join in and sing and do well together, rather than something I just pulled out because it's Black History Month. And take that as a lesson.
So noted.
Yes.
David, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I think I don't know if there's been many things that surprised me. Like many of you all, I grew up in the church, and parents were ministers, and found my way here through the great work and legacy of many music ministers who poured into me and worked long before me. But I think the thing that, like you said, Joslyn, when you're valued in a place, the surprise and maybe the reminder in that is that you've got a lot of flexibility to do as the people have sensed in you and called you to be. Yeah. As they've called you to a place and to your church here, you've got the freedom to listen to the Spirit and to discern where God is empowering you to lead your congregation and lead your people. And I think that's something that, sometimes maybe we take for granted. Maybe it's like hey, I'm minister of music now, and all of us in this room can attest, right? We run the church, we run the show, that's all right. Tim, I'm sorry, but the pastors don't run the place. Okay? But I think there's a lot of grace and wisdom in that we've got the great gifts of the people that we serve to come and to utilize and dwell in their talents. Yeah. The thing that, maybe I'll jump to the unpleasant thing while I'm talking there, maybe.
Let's be real.
Yeah. And not that it's unpleasant, but I think, as you all can attest to, there's probably lots of places in maybe your music ministry or in your church, where I think we see silos, right? So we see silos, and that's a testament. That's not necessarily a bad thing. That's these great, wonderful music organizations that we've built and these great ministries. But I think sometimes, not that we get too big, but that we don't always breathe life back into the other parts of our church. We try to, and we hope to. That's the goal and the aim and the bent. But I think sometimes that comes at a cost, and sometimes that cost might be too high to the life and the work of the broader church. Not just our local church, but the lowercase, the capital C church, just as a whole. And I think that has been a critical reflection for me this week of seeing silos, not just at our local church, but seeing silos in the area of how am I benefiting not just what I'm going to sing Sunday morning or what's going to get the children's choir set up there, but gosh, Susie Q, who went on a mission trip, when she was, 55 and now she's 73, how is what we do in worship going to impact and continue to transform and breathe life into her worship? And so I think that's something that, is maybe the unpleasant truth that we don't want to recognize sometimes, but, the silentness of it, sometimes it's okay to break down the wall and to let the grain fall out of the barn.
Doug just took that one.
Right, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Checks in the mail.
Adam, either side of the coin.
Well, I kind of have one that's both, twofold.
All right.
Okay.
Both.
But unfortunately, I have to start with the negative, just because. Well, I wasn't surprised by the need to be flexible and adaptable. I knew ministry, you got to be adaptable, you got to be flexible. I didn't realize the extent because the surprise that happened so I came in July of 2020 as the Associate Minister of Music under Susan Deal, who many of you know. And the week after I started as the Associate Minister of Music, our organist retired. And then 6 months after I started as the Associate, Susan retired. And then 9 months after I started, our pianist retired. And so here's this, bastion of great experience in music in this church context that I was just completely, was gone. Now, not completely, because I was able to, call people and they were all very supportive. But it was hard. It was hard because I knew that I valued collaboration, and I was surprised by how much I valued collaboration before I was on a staff that was more than, me and a part-time youth minister and a pastor in seminary. I was surprised by that need. Well, a year and a half later, we have an organist, we have a pianist who's also our senior adult minister. He came from Truett as well. And it's been a really great transition, and the surprise of need for collaboration has become this great team that I didn't know that I needed when I started. A team of collaborators, a team of people who are praying for one another, who are making music together. It's been great. So.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Let's shift gears to the practical. What is one innovative skill or practice? We're going to hear some more about innovation from Tim Sharp this afternoon. What's something innovative or adaptive you've had to learn sort of on the job, but maybe graduate school or seminary did not quite prepare you for?
I'll jump in because I just experienced it this week. So I'm fairly certain y'all know Keith and Kristen Getty and their hymns and how rich in theology those are, right? So we use Planning Center, and I have been like the second in command in all of the other places that I've been. So I just tell somebody what I'm doing, they load it in, and then it's done. Well, I'm the first in command now, so I have to do all of that stuff. And we're singing Holy Spirit, Living Breath of God on Sunday, and that song changes chords every 2 notes. And in Planning Center, the way that it was explained to me, if you're putting in a chord chart, you've got to put in all of the lyrics, and you've got to put in all of the chords. You have to break up the words with the chords. It took me about 2 hours to put in Holy Spirit, Living Breath of God, no lie. And that's the innovation, the technology of it all. To be like this, all of these things happen on Sunday morning. We see the product. I mean, all of us are involved in the behind the scenes of it, but I mean, the folks don't know that I spent 2 hours in front of a laptop typing, a bracket with a C and then another bracket, whole, then putting a dash, then putting in the next chord and all of that. But they just don't know that technology, even as a millennial, it wore me out this week. But yeah, Planning Center and all of the other things, Shelby, ProPresenter, all of the things that we have to know and to do in order to do innovative ministry, to do cutting edge, next level ministry in our churches, technology. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, because some of us may feel like we're struggling with technology because of our age, but there's just a learning curve.
Yeah,
for almost everything. Getting your skills up, right? That's a great word.
Often considered the de facto, tech support at my church, because I'm like, quote unquote, the millennial, but know that does not mean that I'm good at technology. I mean, maybe to an extent, but it's just not the same.
Yeah. Well, why don't you pick it up from there? What's something you've had to
Sure. So,
adapt or something.
continuing with the topic of technology, as many of you also probably did, we were looking for ways to connect weekly with our members via email or via social media, things like that, which required often recording a video of some sort. And a lot of times that would be, we would go on rotation and a different minister would go and, give announcements for the week and then, and all those things. Well, something that I've seen done before, I know Carrie, you've done it, is this kind of worship planning preview of the next Sunday and talking about what we're going to be singing, what we're going to be doing. That's been really helpful for congregants, not only just explaining what the service is going to be like and allowing them to prepare their hearts and minds for worship on Sunday, but also introducing new songs in that video. Now, is everybody going to watch that video? No, absolutely not. But the ones that do really, really do carry it, and what happens is then people don't have an excuse for not knowing a song on Sunday morning. People don't have an excuse for saying, "Oh, I didn't know that song, so I didn't sing," because what we've done is we've presented it and sent it out via email the week before. We also print the notes in the worship guide so that if it's not in the hymnal, people can see where the melody goes. At that point, you're like, well, it is what it is. And has that always worked? No, because there are some songs that are just going to flop regardless. But that's been really helpful, and it's been something that I had no idea that I was going to do, nor do I know if I'm going to continue doing, because it's exhausting to do every week. But it's something that, it's something that's been helpful. It's something that's been very helpful, especially when there's new songs.
Oh, great, great. David?
Yeah, I think one of the things, I had a mentor in Tennessee when I was at Carson Newman, and he would always say when I'd come over for choir rehearsal, he'd go, "They didn't teach you that across the road, did they?" Something would go bad like that. And so the wealth of things, and you all know this too, the things that you've learned on your job is more outweighed than what you've learned when you went to school for all this. And especially still is, because like Tim told us, the manual's out the window now. There's no how-to guide anymore. I think one of the things that I tried to do when I was at First Baptist Maryville, they were at a worshiping tradition that had come from a blended to a contemporary and traditional, but the traditional also was pseudo-blended still. So there was a lot of flexibility to introduce newer contemporary Christian music. And I say contemporary, I don't necessarily mean just, Hillsong and all the CCLI stuff. The gays, others, modern today, current. And so I think the big challenge for me was how do I do this in a non-threatening way? How do I do this in a way that is not going to, tick somebody off, or I'm not going to get a rude email on Monday morning going, "Oh, I can't believe you did that again," So I tried to find a way to introduce these great beloved hymns and pair them with a more contemporary or a modern song. A great example that you all probably have done yourselves is "The Lord, I Need You." That's the Matt Mayer song. "Lord, I need you, oh, I need you." Or I need, I'm not sure, but then it's with "I Need Thee Every Hour."
Yeah.
So you finish that up, and you can have this really nice, kind of roots ensemble, or maybe a band some kind, or you can pair it with organ and piano and do that. But then you break into this a cappella section at the end of just the response, "I need thee every hour." So ways that you make the fresh familiar again, but how do you make the familiar fresh? Mm-hmm. So how do you take what the congregation has sung for forever, and how do you change the tempo up 3 clicks on the metronome? How do you, rework a contemporary song to incorporate, a Debussy line or put some of, the Messiah, the instrumental licks in between those, and incorporate those and to make things palpable for our people. I think that's the big innovative key. We've talked about innovation, and really it's kind of innovation through enhancement. I heard John Woods at Dawson Memorial in Birmingham, Alabama say, how do we make what is already being done just the next step better? Not rethinking the wheel, not overdoing it, just slowly and gently enhancing to make it that much more accessible to all the people in our church.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow, a lot to unpack there. Let's shift again, and this is really about cultural shifts, and that is, I'm sort of stating the obvious here. The world has changed in my lifetime, aesthetically, stylistically, musically. Certainly the ecclesiological landscape has changed, And without turning those into pejorative categories, but you recognizing that as well, where do we go from here? I'm just going to pitch the big question to you, and we all have out our iPads,
That's right.
and equally important, how do we thrive in the going?
Yeah.
Anything you have for all of us? Where do we go from here? The 2020s are yet ahead of us.
I'll jump in on that.
Yeah.
I think the thing, Doug, that I'm reminded of is as a new call minister and being, just fresh out of an interview process and meeting new people, I think of all the skills and all the tricks and all the things that I've brought with me to this place. And what got me here really is not the job. It's not the musicality. It's not the here's what we can do, right? We're in the people business, first and foremost. This is all about the relationship. So what do we do here? Yeah, church music has been changing and shifting and has been doing so for 100 years successfully on its own, without us doing anything, right? That's just the time and the times. But the thing that has always been the same is the people. It's always been a business about the people. And so I think for us to, what do we do next? Tim, you said it so well, and I could listen to Tim all day long. Tim, you said this morning, we bring all the tools that we've got with us, everything that we've got as we step into, because that only helps us figure out where the heck we're going next and what's light ahead of us. But I think the heart of that is at the people. I think we're servants of the church, servants of those who come and are entrusted into our care. And so, while church music is changing and while, choirs are shrinking, some are growing, while instrumental ensembles are, changing from, our traditional orchestral settings to maybe incorporating a rhythm section, all these different nuances. Children's choirs don't look like what young musicians in Lifeway put out, It looks like, much more rote teaching and kind of nuanced things like that. I think it's all about making sure that we're the first step forward into this pandemic, not even post-pandemic, but
Not even post, right?
pandemic time still, is making sure that we're caring for our people so well. They have been sitting at home for 2 years now. They've been associated with the church in some sense for quite a while now, and they're just trying to get back into it. And so we got to look at our people and say, we love you, we want to take care of you. How do we do that through music? That's where we start, I think.
Adam?
Yeah, well, and David's right. I mean, it's also not just church music that's changing; it's the church that's changing. It's not clear. I mean, we're living in a very, if not already, very soon to be post-Christendom world. The church is just not as full as it once was. It doesn't have the power that it once had. There are big sanctuaries that are not close to full, and not just because of the pandemic. The pandemic probably sped that up 20 years, but not just because of the pandemic. And so in this time, I think it's really important to to be considering what are our non-negotiables when it comes to worship. What are our core tenets and beliefs about worship that need to stay no matter what? And hopefully those non-negotiables drive us forward. Now, I don't necessarily know what those are for me. I think it's worshiping in spirit and in truth. I think it's worshiping with one another. Not to say that it's bad to be safe and to distance as needed, but it's not sustainable. It's not a thriving. We need ultimately to be a gathered body of believers. So those things I think are non-negotiables for me, and will hopefully drive us forward. And if we set our eyes on those and not the nostalgia of what once was, hopefully that can move us forward in healthy ways.
Yeah.
And Joslyn?
I think we have got to find a way to sing together. This pandemic that we're all experiencing has forced us to find some creative ways to do congregational song. Doug mentioned yesterday that I'm a part of the Center for Congregational Song, but I'm also a member of the Hymn Society, and we've been doing things over the pandemic. I know we've all been doing things over the pandemic on the computer, but there have been times where I'm leading a webinar and we're singing hymns, and of course we don't want everyone's mic on at the same time. That's going to be a mess. But is there a way for us to get the music up on the screen? Is there a way to share the screen where everyone's reading the same thing and we're singing together even though we're in our separate places? And as we get ready to gather again in the church, my church is going back to in-person worship on Sunday, so I gotta make my flight tomorrow. Anyway, so we're going back to in-person worship tomorrow after the spike. We were virtual for a very long time, and then we went back in September of last year, and then the spike happened, so we've been home for about a month. But we've got to find a way to sing together that's responsible. That's responsible. How can we do this thing of joining one another arm in arm, but not actually, and singing together? Everyone in this room can attest to the power of singing together and what that can and does do in a congregation or in a random group of people. I mean, it's just really powerful. And as we think about moving forward, we've got to consider the ways that we can get back to singing together. What that music will be, what it'll sound like, what the difference in what it was, going back to what Adam said about the not the nostalgia of what was, but what it is now, what it can be, how we can be faithful to this music and singing together. I mean, some of the best stuff that we did in grad school was learning about congregational song. And that is the heart of what I do, is getting people to sing together. I'm a singer, and I enjoy singing and being in front, but I more so enjoy joining people, joining everyone together in song. Yeah, let's sing together. Let's do this together. God's going to hear all of us. Yeah, let's be faithful. Yeah.
That is a good word. That's almost a benediction. Except, I wonder, we've got just a minute. I wonder if any of you have a question for any of them or for all of them. We don't have a lot of time because we're going to go hear Jason Payne in the Smoke Rise Sanctuary in just a minute. But anybody have a question? Or a comment?
I want to congratulate Adam. Sunday he gets ordained.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. A beautiful thing indeed.
Coming back to something David said early in my career ministry, when I was still, wet behind the ears, and I don't remember who said it, but the concept of relationships. Yeah. The extent to which we can influence someone is directly related to the strength of those relationships.
Right.
Yeah. And that is vital. And I wished I had learned that and practiced it more intentionally earlier. Yeah. Now I understand, and that's a primary goal in everything I do.
That's right. James Bennett, I think.
So, since you're being ordained on Sunday, I was reminded of something that I'm sure we've all heard at an ordination service just a couple of months ago at Boulevard. When our pastor said to the ordinand, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
That's right.
And David touched on that, and it's a good word for all of us.
How do you, the technology takes a lot of time. I know I've been involved in that. How do you, I know you have a rich background because I know the folks you studied with, some of them. How do you take the worship philosophy that you have and structuring the worship service and have time to do that and then put the chords in and that kind of thing? Do you find that as a challenge to continue to develop the worship philosophically and those elements of worship? How does that
The days get much longer. They're already long days that you work, you know.
Okay.
I think as you get yourself into technology, what I found myself at First Baptist Maryville doing, being the media person, so I had no music organization whatsoever. I was it for everything like that, and it was long days. But I think as you integrated the technology into it, you know, you found shortcuts that, you know, saved you hours of coming through the music libraries and collating, you know, your instrumental, you know, packets and folders for the choir. I mean, the technology ended up helping. It just was a different way around it. You know, you still got to point B, but it's once you get to the learning curve, I think it alleviates some of the burden of how we once did things. You know,
I think there's hope in the fact that we need to know that we can't be all things to all people.
That's right.
And if it gets to a point where, you know, that the technology component is taking away from the relationship building, is taking away from other things that are important, like just, you know, don't feel like that's and, you know, some churches have staff members that are tasked with those things. We don't have that luxury. So, you know, we're trying to navigate the physical space and the digital space, and it's really tough to do both. So know that it's not, you know, we're not alone in that. I feel like it's
wow. This is such a rich conversation. I hate to bring it to a close, but will you join me in thanking our panel?